The new Magic Switchbox 3 2nd edition is an expansion of the now discontinued Magic Switchbox 3. It is built around a more powerful microcontroller chip and incorporates a few more features that we will cover later. The intelligent electronic board is still hidden underneath the battery pack, creating the illusion that there is no electronic at all. The new Magic Switchbox 3 2nd edition is capable of detecting when a bulb has been removed from one of the four positions and when it has been put back anywhere in the one of the four positions, keeping the color relation between the switch cap and the color bulb. It can do this with any bulb turned off or on respectively. As with any past Magic Switchbox versions, the new Magic Switchbox 3 2nd edition also comes with a password so the magician can let the audience play with it in its locked state. The difference is that now it is possible for the magician to turn this function on or off at will. Factory setting default to on. We will show you how to alter this in the programming training section. A memory feature has also been implemented that will allow the Switchbox 3 2nd edition to remember the switch cap to bulb color association even when the power has been removed. The switcher is also magician programmable. Factory setting default to on. We will also show you how to alter this in the programming training section. As with any past Magic Switchbox version, the switches and bulbs are numbered from left to right, 1 to 4, for the ease of the demonstration. At the beginning, switch 1 turns bulb 1 on. Switch 2 turns bulb 2 on. Switch 3 turns bulb 3 on, and switch 4 turns bulb 4 on as we demonstrate. The factory setting password is 1 on, 2 on, 3 on, and 4 on. Then 1 off, 3 off, 2 off, and 4 off. This password and only this password will unlock the switch box. This password is fully programmable by the magician and he can make it everything he wants. We will show you how to alter it in the programming training section. You can now swap any 2, 3, or 4 bulbs at will, and the new Magic Switchbox 3 2nd edition will always remember the switch cap to bulb color association as long as you respect the last out, first in rule. Let's give you some easy examples. We will start with a 2 bulb swap. Here we will swap the bulb 1 with bulb 2. The bulb 1 will be removed first and the bulb 2 will be removed second. The last out, first in rule asks for the bulb 2 to be put back first since it was removed last and the bulb 1 put back in second. We can now prove the magic by turning both switches on and off. There is no sequence for bulb lighting and you can turn them on one at a time or all together as many times as you want. Care should be taken not to enter the dynamic switch cap swap trigger code that we will teach you later in this training. Switching 3 bulbs is also easy. Let's switch bulb 1, 2 and 3. Let's remove the bulb 1 first, then the bulb 2 second, and bulb 3 last. You can see that I use my hand to keep track of the removal order, keeping the last out near the tip of my fingers. The last out, first in rule here, calls for bulb 3 first, that we will put in position 1, followed by bulb 2, that we will put in position 3. The remaining bulb 1 will be put in the empty location 2. We can now prove the magic by turning switches on and off. Again, there is no sequence for bulb lighting. Switching 4 bulbs is also that easy. Let's demonstrate a 4 bulb swap. Removal order bulb 1, bulb 2, bulb 3, bulb 4. Again, I use my hand to keep the removal order. Installation order, bulb 4 in position 1, bulb 3 in position 2, bulb 2 in position 3, bulb 1 in position 4 in that exact order. Remember the last out first in rule. I have chosen these lamp position, but it could have been any 4 lamp socket for any color as long as the last out first in rule is respected. We now have to prove the magic by turning the switch on and off in any order. By now, you should already be comfortable with bulb swapping, so let's proceed to more interesting features. It is also possible to swap bulb with bulb being turned on. Here is a demonstration on how it is done with some bulb on and swapping 2, 3, or even 4 bulb. Enjoy the demonstration. There are now two ways of swapping the switch cap. We will call them dynamic and static. We will explain the dynamic here and keep the static for later. Every time you enter the dynamic switch cap swap trigger code, you must do a dynamic switch cap swap during the next trick. I repeat, you must do the dynamic switch cap swap. There is now two ways to trigger the dynamic switch cap swap trick depending of the setting of the programmable function tree. If programmable function tree is set to off, the for switch on method is used. Every time that the four switches are turned on at the same time, a dynamic switch cap swap trick is triggered. If programmable function tree is set to on, the password method is used. The factory setting for the password method is 1 on, 2 on, 3 on, and 4 on. Then 1 off, 3 off, 2 off, and 4 off. This trigger code and only this trigger code will initiate a dynamic switch cap swap trick. This trigger code is fully programmable by the magician and he can make it everything he wants. We will show you how to alter this in the programming training section. Factory setting default to for switch on method. The dynamic switch cap swap trick uses the lighting sequence method that was used in some older Magic Switchbox versions. The factory setting for the lighting sequence is bulb 1, bulb 2, bulb 3, bulb 4. The lighting sequence is fully programmable by the magician and he can make it everything he wants. We will show you how to alter this in the programming training section. Let's make a demonstration. When the magician decides to do a dynamic switch cap swap trick, he enters the dynamic switch cap swap trick trigger code in his last magic proof trick. Either the for switches on or the password method. Here we will use the for switches on for the demonstration. Let's swap the switch cap in any order. We now must turn on and off the switch of the same color of the bulb in position 1. Second, we must turn on and off the switch with the same color of the bulb in position 2. Third, we must turn on and off the switch with the same color of the bulb in position 3. Finally, we must turn on and off the switch with the same color of the bulb in position 4. Here we have used the factory setting 1, 2, 3, 4, but if the lighting sequence has been modified by the magician, this is the one we have to use. There is an interesting magic trick that can be done with the dynamic switch cap swap. We call it the multiple bulb lighting. For this trick, you will use the hole in front of the switches to put the switch cap with the same color as the bulb color requested by the lighting sequence. Let me demonstrate how it is done. After a dynamic switch cap swap was initiated by entering the dynamic switch cap swap trigger code, we can use the same switch 2, 3, or even 4 times to turn the bulb on using the lighting sequence. We can also see that the magic still works even in this condition. In order to come back to the normal switch box operation, we must reinitiate another dynamic switch cap swaps by entering the dynamic switch cap swap trigger code again, while showing the audience that the switch that have no switch cap fitted does nothing, and that the other one are turning some bulb on and off. We retrieve normal switch box operation by using the 4 switches to turn on their related color bulb on and off. From now on, the Magic Switch Box 3 2nd edition will remember these new switch cap to bulb color association and keep on with it. The static switch cap swap is a little trickier as we cheat the last out first in rule to achieve it. The static switch cap swap will only be performed on a 3 or 4 bulbs swap, as it becomes too evident when performed with 2 bulbs. You will find 2 Microsoft Word files on the DVD explaining both tricks in depth. In order to perform a static switch cap swap, the magician must now use the first out, first in rule. In other words, he puts the bulb back in the same order as they have been taken out. Let's make a demonstration of a static switch cap swap. Here we will use bulb 1, 2, and 3. I will start by removing bulb 1, then bulb 2, last bulb 3. I use my hand to hold the bulb, but this time the first bulb close to the tip of my finger is bulb 1, the first I remove, followed by bulb 2, the second I removed, and lately bulb 3, the third I removed. This allows me to swap the switch cap of the same color as bulb 1 with the switch cap of the same color as bulb 3. It is not important where you put the bulb, as the switch box 3 still keeps track of the color association. We now need to prove the magic by turning on the switches. Now let's make a demonstration of a static switch cap swap of 4 bulbs. I will remove them in the order 1, 2, 3, 4, keeping the first bulb out close to my finger's tip and the last out close to my wrist. The bulb could have been removed in any order. This allows me to swap the switch cap of the same color as bulb 1 with the switch cap of the same color as bulb 4 and the switch cap of the same color as bulb 2 with the switch cap of the same color as bulb 3. The removal and installation order of the bulb is not important, as the Magic Switchbox tree keeps track of the color association as long as you respect the first out, first in rule. Again, we need to prove the magic by turning on the switches. I will now demonstrate a static 3-bulb switch cap swap with a switch turn on and a static 4-bulb switch cap swap with 2 switches turn on. This is only scratching the possibilities of static switch cap swap, and with a little experimenting with a combination of first out last in rule and first out first in rule inside the same trick, it is possible to achieve great magic tricks. We have mentioned that a 2-bulb static switch cap swap was too obvious for the audience, but a succession of them bring the stationary bulb trick. If you remove 2 bulbs and you put them back in the same socket, in the first out, first in order, you just perform a 2-bulb static switch cap swap, and you must swap both switch cap of the same color of the 2 bulb that you just removed. The same result is achieved if you lose and screw back both bulbs in the first in, first out order. Now, if you make 4 of them in succession, it becomes an amazing, very powerful switch cap swap trick. We start with a color sequence in mind. I like to use the red, yellow, green, blue sequence, as this is the rainbow order, but any sequence is good as long as you can remember it. Here how it's done. I start to turn on the red bulb with the corresponding switch. I then lose the red bulb so it is extinguished. I remove the red switch cap and install it on the switch that had the yellow switch cap. I install the yellow switch cap on the switch that had the green switch cap. I install the green switch cap on the switch that had the blue switch cap. Finally, I install the blue switch cap on the vacant switch that had the red switch cap. You must have noticed here that I followed the red, yellow, green, blue sequence. Now let's move to the bulbs. We have already the red bulb loose. Next color in the color sequence is yellow, so I loosen the yellow bulb and tighten the red one. Next color in the color sequence is green, so I loosen the green bulb and tighten the yellow one. Next color in color sequence is blue, so I loosen the blue bulb and tighten the green one. Remember that the switch that was turned on is capped with the blue switch cap. Finally, I tighten the blue bulb and, surprise, it turns on. Turning the blue switch off and showing that the color bulb switch cap relation was retained will complete the trick. This trick might seem to be complicated, but with a little practice, you will find it quite simple. Let's move to programming. There are three functions that the magician can program on or off. First, the password. If set to off, no password is required on power on, and the Magic Switchbox 2nd edition is ready for the first trick. Second, switch cap to bulb color relation memory on power off. If set to on, the Magic Switchbox 2nd edition will remember it in its non-volatile memory, the switch cap to bulb color relation, even if the power switch is turned off or the batteries are removed. Third, the dynamic switch cap swap trick trigger code type. There is now two ways to trigger the trick in the 2nd edition version. One, turning the 4 switch on at the same time. Second, the password mode. Switches must be turned on and off in a particular and only sequence. If set to 1, then the password mode is active. To turn this function on or off, turn the power switch to off. Turn switches 1, 2, and 3 on, then turn the power switch to on. Bulb 1, 2, and 3 will light. Turn switches 1, 2, and 3 off. The actual state of the tree function is displayed. If bulb 1 is on, then the password is active. If bulb 2 is on, then the switch cap to bulb color relation memory is on. If bulb 3 is on, then the password dynamic switch cap swap trick trigger code is active. Here, bulb 3 is off, meaning that the dynamic switch cap swap trick trigger code uses the for switch on-off method. Turn switch 4 on. Bulb 1, 2, and 3 will extinguish if they were on, and bulb 4 will come on. With switch 4 still on, we can now choose the functions that we want on. Turning switch 1 on will choose the password on. Turning switch 2 on will choose the switch cap to bulb color relation memory on. Turning switch 3 on will choose the password mode for the dynamic switch cap swap trick trigger code. The respective bulb will also turn on. The new settings will be saved to non-volatile memory when switch 4 is turned off. The corresponding bulb will stay on and the magic switch box will be in a halt state. Turning power switch off will complete the sequence. Modifying the password. Start with the power switch in the off position. Turn switch 1 and 4 on, then turn the power switch to on. Bulb 1 and 4 will light. Turn switch 1 and 4 off. The Magic Switchbox 2nd edition will show the actual password by turning the bulb on and off in the same order as the actual password, and then flash bulb 1 and 4 3 times to tell you to enter the new password. You can now enter the new valid password using the 4 switches. In order to be valid, a password must use the 4 switches and end with the 4 switch in the off position. The Magic Switchbox 2nd edition will validate the new password. If valid, it will show it to you by turning the bulbs on and off in the same order as the new password and save it to the non-volatile memory. If not valid, it will flash the bulb left to right and right to left 3 times and show you the old password again, then waits for a new valid password. Now the Magic Switchbox will be in a halt state and the power switch must be turned off. Modifying the dynamic switch cap swap password trigger code, in short DSS-PTC. Start with the power switch in the off position. Turn switch 1 and 3 on, then turn the power switch to on. Bulb 1 and 3 will light. Turn switch 1 and 3 off. The Magic Switchbox will show the actual DSS-PTC by turning the bulb on and off in the same order as the actual DSS-PTC and then flash bulb 1 and 4 3 times to tell you to enter the new DSS-PTC. You can now enter the new DSS PTC using the 4 switches. In order to be valid, a DSS PTC must use the 4 switches and end with the 4 switches in the off position. The Magic Switch box will validate the new DSS PTC. If valid, it will show it to you by turning the bulb on and off in the same order as the new DSS PTC and save it to a non-volatile memory. If not valid, it will flash the bulb left to right and right to left 3 times and show you the old DSS PTC again, then waits for the new valid DSS PTC. Now the Magic Switch box will be in a halt state and the power switch must be turned off. Modifying the lighting sequence for the dynamic switch cap swap trick. Start with the power switch in the off position. Turn switch 2 and 3 on. Then turn the power switch to on. Bulb 2 and 3 will light. Turn switch 2 and 3 off. The Magic Switch box will show the actual lighting sequence for the dynamic switch cap swap. Then flash bulb 2 and 3 times to tell you to enter the new lighting sequence. You can now enter the new valid lighting sequence using the 4 switches. In order to be valid, a lighting sequence must use the 4 switches one at a time and end with the 4 switches in the off position. The Magic Switch box will validate the new lighting sequence. If valid, it will show it to you by turning the bulb on and off in the same order as the new lighting sequence and save it to non-volatile memory. If not valid, it will flash the bulb left to right and right to left 3 times and show you the whole lighting sequence again, then waits for the new valid lighting sequence. The Magic Switch box will be in a halt state and the power switch must be turned off. Returning the Magic Switch box to its factory settings. It could be desirable on some occasion to return the Magic Switch box 3-second edition to its factory setting, and we have a function to do it. The factory settings are as follows. Password is set to on. Memory on power off is set to on. Dynamic switch cap trigger code is set to the 4 switch on off setting. Password is reset to 1 on, 2 on, 3 on and 4 on. Then 1 off, 3 off, 2 off, and 4 off. Dynamic switch cap swap password trigger code is reset to 1 on, 2 on, 3 on, and 4 on. Then 1 off, 3 off, 2 off, and 4 off. Lighting sequence for the dynamic switch cap swap is reset to bulb 1, 2, 3, and 4. Turn the power switch to off. Turn switch 3 and 4 on. Then turn the power switch to on. Bulb 3 and 4 will light. Turn switch 3 and 4 off. Bulb 3 and 4 will extinguish. Turn switch to on. Bulb 2 will turn on. Turn switch to off. Bulb 2 will turn off and bulb 3 and 4 will light. The magic switch box is now returned to its factory setting. The magic switch box 3 second edition will be in a all state and the power switch must be turned off. This completes the training for the Magic Switchbox 3 2nd edition. When you feel that you are in control with everything we taught you, proceed to the video called The Icing on the Cake on the DVD. This video will teach you another powerful trick that was not covered before and that incorporates some of the trick that you've learned before.